Welcome to the Radiology Vault, an open repository for radiology educational content designed for learners and medical professionals. Presented by the Michigan Medicine Department of Radiology.
Hi, this is Kate Maturen. I'm happy to be with you today to speak with you about the essentials of the new Society of Radiologists in Ultrasound First Trimester Pregnancy Lexicon. I have no relevant financial disclosures, but I was a participant in the Consensus Conference and a co-author of these two papers, which are the source of most of the material in this talk and are referenced throughout. I'd also like to acknowledge the efforts and leadership of the first and last authors of this paper, Drs. Rogers and Stratsky, who provided a number of teaching slides for the people in the Consensus Conference, some of which are modified for this talk, and a number of the image examples. The goals of this project were to establish a pregnancy ultrasound lexicon to provide medically appropriate terminology that is standardized, clear, accurate, and specific, avoids bias and harm to both patients and practitioners, and is acceptable to all of the stakeholders in this process. This project was endorsed by multiple societies across multiple specialties and provides a lexicon that should be used by all physicians and practitioners taking part in care of pregnant patients. First trimester ultrasound imaging reveals embryonic growth in a predictable sequence of detectable events, which starts at 5 weeks, where we can start to see a gestational sac transvaginally. The next thing would be a yolk sac. So we always see these things in a predictable order. We never see an embryo before a yolk sac, and we never see a yolk sac before a gestational sac. An embryo can be seen at about 6 weeks, and thereafter cardiac activity can begin to be detected. The term gestational sac refers to a round or oval fluid collection with a dual hyperechoic rim, the so-called double decidual sign, which is formed by 2 layers of decidua. If a yolk sac is present, we can confirm that this is a definite gestational sac or pregnancy, and if a yolk sac is not present, but we do see that double decidual sign, and dating and other parameters are all concordant, we have a probable gestational sac or pregnancy. And that's in contrast to intracavitary fluid, which is fluid in the endometrial canal with pointed margins and a single echogenic rim, which is just the normal endometrium surrounding that fluid. We used to use the term pseudogestational sac or pseudosac, but that's actually confusing, and we can be more precise by simply saying intracavitary fluid, as in this example, where we see the endometrium is spread apart by a small amount of fluid within the canal, which should not be mistaken for a gestational sac. The next term to discuss is the term embryo itself. So gestational age is calculated traditionally on the last menstrual period or an early dating ultrasound. The first trimester is everything less than 13 weeks, 6 days, and that's what we're talking about here, first trimester ultrasound. But there's a distinction between the embryonic and the fetal period. An embryo is anything less than 10 weeks gestational age, which is 8 weeks after fertilization. So since we're mostly talking about activities in the 5 to 6 week gestational age period, we're talking about embryos, not fetuses. So we avoid the term fetal pole. At 5 to 6 weeks gestational age, the cells that will form the fetal heart begin to cluster and pulse, but anatomically this is not yet a heart. So for this reason, we're going to avoid the term heart motion, and instead we prefer the terms cardiac activity or cardiac motion. We also avoid the terms live and living, and particularly the term viable, because to people that are not well versed in medical terminology, the term viable may actually connote that the embryo could potentially survive outside of the uterus. And we know that at 5 to 6 weeks gestational age, this is not going to be possible. An intrauterine pregnancy is a pregnancy implanted in the normal location, which is the upper 2/3 of the uterus. However, there are some normal variants, including an eccentric implantation, as in this example, a transverse transabdominal image showing a normal but eccentric implantation that's over to the patient's left. And here's another example with the cine clip showing a bicornuate uterus that has a normal intrauterine pregnancy in the right horn. So this is actually called a cornual pregnancy, although to some extent that term should best be avoided altogether. Cornual and angular pregnancy are both confusing terms because they can be mistaken for interstitial ectopic pregnancy that I'll show you on the next slide. So we're going to use the word IUP to describe anything that's in the upper 2/3 of the uterus, which is the normal physiologic location for implantation. What about distinguishing an eccentric pregnancy from an interstitial ectopic pregnancy? So in the normal sepia tone image here from a 3D reformatted coronal image, we can see that the gestational sac is slightly off to the patient's left. But that's in contrast to this ectopic pregnancy, where the gestational sac is well off to the patient's left and actually no longer communicating with the echogenic endometrium. So in both cases, the white outline shows the endometrial tissue itself. The endometrium completely surrounds the gestational sac in the eccentric pregnancy, but in the ectopic pregnancy, there's actually a bar of myometrium between the two. Sometimes this distinction can be difficult, particularly when the sac is small, and we do short-term follow-up interval ultrasound if we're uncertain. The term ectopic in general is an extremely important one, and an ectopic pregnancy is any pregnancy implanted in an abnormal location. And that location may be intrauterine or extrauterine, and this is a change from prior practice where ACOG guidelines only use the term ectopic to talk about extrauterine pregnancies. However, as you know, there are several types of intrauterine ectopic pregnancies, including interstitial, scar ectopic, and cervical ectopic pregnancies. Whenever we talk about ectopic pregnancies, we're going to report the location and the side, and again, we'll avoid those terms cornual ectopic, instead use the term interstitial, and C-section pregnancy, because we want to use the word ectopic to show that this is not in an appropriate physiologic location. Here's a couple of other new terms, and these are not new terms for obstetricians and gynecologists, but they may be new terms for radiologists. The first is pregnancy of unknown location, and this is where we have no findings of probable or definite intrauterine pregnancy or ectopic pregnancy on transvaginal ultrasound. So for each of those distinctions, we can have a definite or probable subcategory, but if we have neither nor, but we know the patient's pregnant because of urine or serum pregnancy testing, we have a pregnancy of unknown location, which is appropriately followed up in 7 to 10 days. In the absence of concerning clinical features. Another term that's important is early pregnancy loss, or EPL. So I want to first start by saying that the existing SRU criteria for failure are unchanged, and that's from the Dubélé paper in 2013. But we're getting away from the term failure because both patients and providers find that this has a pejorative connotation. And it's okay to use the terms miscarriage and spontaneous abortion, although patients do not prefer the term spontaneous abortion either. Miscarriage is a colloquial term, but it's also medically appropriate, but early pregnancy loss is the preferred term. So in summary, cardiac activity replaces the terms heart motion and heartbeat in the first trimester because the heart's not fully formed. The terms live and living and viable should be avoided because they can cause confusion for non-medical professionals. Ectopic pregnancy is an abnormal implantation, whether it's intrauterine or extrauterine. Pregnancy of unknown location means that we have no signs of probable or definite intrauterine pregnancy or ectopic pregnancy on transvaginal ultrasound. And early pregnancy loss, or EPL, replaces the term pregnancy failure, although the terms for defining pregnancy loss are unchanged from the prior literature. This lexicon was created in consensus with input from imagers, patients, and clinicians, and should be used to provide medically appropriate and clear terminology, protect everyone's safety. Thank you very much.